Okay.
Good afternoon. Probate court number 2 is now in session. Honorable Pamela Medina.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I call cause number 505021 on the estate of Adrian Noel Samaniego on determination of heirship and independent administration. Ms. Marin and Mr. Held, are you both ready to proceed?
Yes, we are, Your Honor.
And who are your witnesses?
My witnesses are Irma Samaniego, Casey Swales, and then Sylvie Novotny.
Okay, we'll start off with the heirship determination, but we'll go ahead and swear in all three witnesses. Okay, so I'll need them to raise their right hand and unmute themselves. Okay, Sylvia. No, I see.
Yes.
Sylvia. Casey Swalls.
Where'd she go?
Casey Swalls.
She, I thought I saw her when we first came in. Let's see. Oh, there she is.
She's joining. Okay. All right. So Ms. Samaniego, Ms. Novotny, and Casey Swalls, if you would raise your right hand so I can swear you in. Casey is still not. I'll need to see Casey. Casey, I'll need to see your video.
Casey, are you able to turn your video on? Where's she? There she is.
Okay. You raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give in this case to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Casey, we'll go ahead and start with you. If you'll go ahead and state your name for the court.
Casey Swales.
And were you acquainted with Adrian Samaniego, the decedent, during his lifetime?
Yes.
And approximately how long did you know the decedent?
Over the course of several years. I forget the exact year we met, but approximately, 3 to 4 years.
Okay. And the decedent died in Houston, Harris County, Texas on May 20th of 2020 at the age of 31 years old, and at the time resided in Harris County, Texas, correct?
Correct.
And are you acquainted with his family history?
Yes, I am to an extent, but obviously
Yes.
we only knew each other for several years.
Yes, but you would have been aware.
Excuse me, I'm on the wrong call, I think. This is not about a decedent that
and were you ever aware of the decedent being married? So to the best of your knowledge, was he never married?
No.
And were any children born to or adopted by the decedent?
No.
And did he ever bring any children into his home, to the best of your knowledge?
No.
And having known the decedent for several years, you knew and had a relationship with him over the years, correct?
Yes.
And do you feel like you would have known if there were any others who could have claimed they were heirs of the decedent outside
Yes.
of his parents? Perfect. And do you have an interest in the estate of Adrian?
No.
And you're not being paid anything today for your testimony, correct?
No.
Your Honor, I pass this witness.
Thank you, Mr. Hill.
Good afternoon, Ms. Swales. My name is Chris Heald. I'm the attorney ad litem in this case. And I heard you testify that you were familiar with the decedent in this case. Were you a friend, or were you in a relationship with the decedent?
We were in a relationship at one point, but we stayed friends even after we split in terms of a romantic relationship.
Okay. So you dated for a time and then continued to be friends. And so you're familiar with whether he was dating anybody else or whether he had potentially been married.
Yes.
And to the best of your knowledge, you testified and you are quite confident that he was never married. Is that right?
Yes.
And he never had any children, either before your relationship, during your relationship, after your relationship. Is that right?
No.
And do you believe you were close enough with him that you would have known if he had any children, or if any other women would have claimed to have been carrying his child?
Yes.
And so as far as heirs, all he has are his parents, because he never had any children, correct?
Correct.
I'll pass the witness.
Thank you, Ms. Marin.
All right, Ms. Novotny, we'll go ahead and go to you now, if you'll state your name for the court.
Sylvia Novotny.
And were you also acquainted with Adrian Samaniego, the decedent, during his lifetime?
Yes.
And approximately how long did you know him for?
I knew him for about a decade.
And during that time, were you a friend, coworker?
We were schoolmates in college, then we dated, and then for a short period of time, we also worked together. And then we're in a book club together. Long relationship.
Fair, very fair. And to the best of your knowledge, he passed away in Houston, Harris County, Texas on May 20th of 2020 at the age of 31 years old, and at the time was a resident of Harris County, Texas, correct?
Yes.
And during that long period of time where you guys were, friends, book club members, all that, were you acquainted with the family's history?
Yes.
And to the best of your knowledge, was he ever married during his lifetime?
No.
And were any children born to or adopted by him?
Nope.
And to the best of your knowledge, did he ever bring any children into his home?
No.
And, having that long relationship with the decedent, you knew and had a relationship with him over those years, correct?
Yes.
And do you feel like you would have known if there were any others who could claim to be heirs?
Yes.
And do you have an interest in this estate?
No.
And you are also not being paid for your testimony today, correct?
No.
Your
Correct.
Honor, I pass this witness. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hield.
And Ms. Novotny, and you just testified again, and I just want to confirm a couple things. You were close enough with the decedent, even throughout your decade of knowing him in various capacities, that you believe you would have known if he had gotten engaged or had gotten married to somebody?
Absolutely.
And you're 100% confident he never got married, never got engaged to anybody?
No, he would sometimes tell me about his relationships, and I feel like that would have come up.
Okay. Did you ever meet his parents?
Yes.
Okay, and just for the record, so we're getting everybody's name out there, can you give his parents' names?
I believe so. Irma, of course, and then I believe his father's name was Jesus.
Okay, so Irma and Jesus, his mom and dad, they're both still alive.
Yep.
Never had any kids living with him.
Never.
Never said I might have some kids running around I don't know about.
Nope.
And Ms. Marin already asked you this, but you haven't been promised anything today for your testimony. Is that right?
That's right.
Did he ever tell you that he wanted to do a will, or that he planned on doing a will?
No, when you're in your early 20s or mid 30s, you don't talk. Most people don't think about wills at that age.
Very true. Very true. Okay, I'll pass the witness.
Thank you, Ms. Marin.
All right, and then we'll move on to the applicant, if that's okay.
Oh, actually, we'll go ahead and finish the heirship.
Okay.
I don't have anything further, Your Honor. I actually did speak to the father as well. I spoke to him, and I'm quite satisfied that the decedent never had any children. It's very unfortunate circumstances. He was a very young man. So his parents are his two heirs.
Okay, thank you. That's sad. Okay, after hearing testimony, the court finds that the decedent, Adrian Noel Samaniego, died intestate, and the court finds by clear and convincing evidence that the decedent's heirs are Irma Alvarado Samaniego and Jesus Enrique Samaniego. I'll sign the order. And are the ad litem fees agreed to?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Do we have, hold on, I'm sorry. Do we have an order?
I think I clicked the wrong thing when I filed it the first time. It got kicked back to me, and so I refiled it.
Thank you. Okay, as soon as we have it, I will sign it. And okay. So we can now, Mr. Hild, you are excused, and we can move on to the independent administration.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you. Thank you.
All
Ms.
right.
Novotny and Ms. Swells, you are also excused. Thank you for your time today. I'm sorry to hear of your loss of your friend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry, Ms. Muddy, you may proceed.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Ms. Samaniego, will you please state your full name for the court?
Irma Alvarado Samaniego.
And how were you related to the decedent?
My son.
It's okay. And is it true that your son passed away on May 20th of 2020 in Houston, Harris County, Texas at the age of 31 years old?
Yes.
And at the time, was he a resident of Harris County, Texas?
Yes.
And it's true that 4 years have not elapsed since the date of his death, correct?
Correct.
And to the best of your knowledge, did he ever have a will?
No.
And is there a necessity for administration of this estate?
Yes.
And your son was unmarried at the time of his death, correct?
Correct.
And he also didn't have any children born to or adopted by him.
No.
And did he ever bring any children into his home to the best of your knowledge?
No, he did not.
And is it true that you made an application to this court for an independent administration of this estate to serve without bond?
Yes.
And this has been agreed upon by both you and Adrian's father, Jesus Samaniego Jr., correct?
Yes.
And you are qualified and not disqualified from serving as independent administrator, correct?
Yes.
And you and your ex-husband, Jesus Samaniego Jr., are those sole distributees of the estate, correct?
Yes. Correct.
Your Honor, I ask that Irma Alvarado Samaniego be appointed as independent administrator of Adrian Samaniego's estate, and that she be issued letters of administration to serve without bond or other security, and that the appointment of praisers be waived, as this is a non-taxable estate.
Okay, thank you. After listening to testimony, the court finds there is necessity for the administration of the estate of Adrian Noel Samaniego, and that all distributees agree to independent administration and appointment of Irma Alvarado Samaniego as
Thank you.
independent administrator. Court appoints and probates. The court grants request and admits the estate to probate, and the court appoints Ms. Irma Alvarado Samaniego, waiving the appointment of appraisers and serving without bond, subject to filing the oath. And I'm so sorry, Ms. Samaniego, for your loss.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. You are excused, Ms. Buddy, as well as
Thank
Ms. Samaniego. Thank you. I call cause number 504838 in the estate of Braulio Chavez on determination of heirship and independent administration. Mr. Robertson and Mr. Scadden, are you ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor, ready to proceed.
Thank you. And I'll need to swear in your witnesses. I believe it's a Suzanne Wilkerson and Chugi Salcedo and Juan Chavez.
I see Ms. Wilkerson on the screen. I don't see Ms. Salcedo or Mr. Chavez. They should be in the waiting room.
Yes, somebody's in the waiting room.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Okay, so
I'm
should-
here too.
Juan Chavez,
Suhey Salcedo is here.
if you could please raise your right hand so that I can see your right hand raised in the video. All right, and I'm going to swear each of you in. Okay, thank you. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give in this case to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Wilkinson?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Chavez?
Sí.
Yes, okay, thank you. Thank you. Mr. Robertson, you may proceed with your first
Thank you.
witness.
Your Honor, I call Ms. Suzanne Wilkerson. Ms. Wilkerson, will you state your name and spell your name for the court, please?
My name is Suzanne Marie Wilkerson, Suzon Marie, Marie, Wilkerson, Wilkerson.
And Ms. Wilkerson, are you personally and well acquainted with the family and marital history of Braulio Chavez, the deceased?
Yes, sir.
And were you his friend and his neighbor for over 15 years?
Yes, sir.
And at the time of his death, did he live in Harris County, Texas?
Yes, sir.
And at the time he passed on or about September,
Okay.
did he pass on or about September the 8th, 2021 at the age of 73 years?
Yes, sir.
And at the time he passed, he resided in Harris County, Texas.
Yes, sir.
Did he ever discuss a will with you?
No, sir.
Did you ever see a will that he may have had?
No, sir.
Did he acknowledge to you that he had any children born to him or adopted by him?
No, sir. He never did.
Did you ever see any children living or residing in his residence?
No, sir.
Did he ever acknowledge or did you see that he was married to anyone who may claim to be his spouse?
No, sir. Never.
Did you ever see anyone living with him who may claim or allege that they could have been his spouse?
No, sir.
Has more than 4 years passed since the date of his death?
No, sir.
Do you have knowledge that his father, Julio Chavez, passed before him? His father died before him, correct?
Yes, sir. I'm not sure, but I believe he did.
No one was living there with him that could claim to be his parent, his father.
No, sir.
And isn't it also true that his mother, Miss Barrera, passed before him?
Yes, sir.
Are you aware if he had any siblings other than Juan Chavez?
I think that was the only brother he had.
And he only had one sibling. And to your knowledge, again, he was never married.
No, sir. He wasn't married.
Do you have any financial interest in his estate?
No, sir. I don't.
Has anyone paid you for your testimony?
No, sir.
And are you in any way related to Mr. Chavez?
No, sir. I'm not. I've just been a neighbor.
I understand. Your Honor, I pass this witness.
Thank you, Mr. Robertson. Ma'am, we spoke, it was in last June. It's been a while, but Mr. Robertson, you're not getting any money or any compensation of any type for this testimony today, are you? Hello?
Ms. Wilson, take your mute off, please.
Okay.
Did you hear my question, ma'am?
Did you say I was receiving money?
Right, uh-huh.
No, sir, I've never received
Right.
any money.
And how long you were neighbors to the gentleman? How long were you guys living close to each other?
Well, I've been here 46 years.
And
when they moved over here, I was here.
And how long ago was that?
I can't exactly say what year it was, but
You say 20, 30 years?
They've been over there more than 15 years.
Oh, okay. Well, that's what I needed to know. Thank you very much. Pass the witness.
Your Honor, I call Suhei Saseda.
Yes.
Mr. Saseda, would you state and spell your name for the court, please?
Yes. It's Eugene. Saucedo, Saucedo.
And are you personally well acquainted with the family and marital history of Braulio Chavez?
Yes.
And were you his friend and neighbor when he lived in Harris County, Texas?
Yes.
And about how long have you known Mr. Chavez?
I've been on for more than 16 years.
And you've been his friend and neighbor for more than 16 years?
Yes.
And did he pass on or about September the 8th, 2021 at the age of 73 years?
Yes.
And to your knowledge, did he have a will?
No.
Did he ever discuss a will with you?
No.
Did his father, Julio Chavez, pass before him on or about 1951?
Yes.
And did his mother, Benita Barrera, pass before him on about 2004?
Yes.
And was the only sibling Mr. Chavez had was his brother Juan Chavez?
Yes.
To your knowledge, was Mr. Chavez ever married?
No.
Did anyone live with him, to your knowledge, that could claim to be his spouse?
No.
Did Mr. Chavez have any children?
No.
Did any children live with him who could claim he was their father?
No.
Do you have any financial interest in the estate of Mr. Chavez?
No.
Has anyone paid you for your testimony?
No.
Were you in any way related to Mr. Chavez?
No.
I pass this witness, Your Honor.
Good afternoon, Mrs. Saucedo. We again spoke quite a while away. I think it was again, it was, I have in my notes that it was in June. I just want to insist on it. You're not receiving any compensation for this testimony today, is that correct?
No, correct.
And you're in no way an heir of the Chavez family, is that correct?
Correct.
And how long you said you lived, like 15 or 16 years by these folks?
Yes, 16 years.
Were you already there and they moved in, or did you move in?
No, I moved in.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your testimony and have a good afternoon.
Thank you, you too.
You're going to ask that the court make a determination of the heirship.
Oh. Okay. I apologize. After hearing testimony, the court finds that the decedent, Braulio Chavez, died intestate, and the court finds by clear and convincing evidence that the decedent's heir is Juan Chavez. And I signed the order, and I needed to verify if there was agreement amongst the parties on the ad litem fee of $600.
Oh, yes. In fact, I've even been paid quite a while ago. Thank you, Mr. Robertson.
Thank
My
you.
pleasure.
I'll sign that. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Scadden. You may be excused.
Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon, all.
You too. And Miss Wilkinson, thank you for your time. Sorry for the loss of your neighbor. You may be excused. And Miss Suke Salcedo, thank you as well for your time. Sorry for the loss of your friend, and you may be excused.
Thank you.
All right, I'm sorry, Mr. Robertson on
Yes.
the independent administration.
Yes. Your Honor, I call Mr. Juan Chavez.
Miss. Okay, I'm a little concerned. Is Mr. Chavez using an interpreter?
He is, Your Honor, his son.
Okay, we can't do it like that. We actually have to have an official interpreter if he is Spanish speaking. And what we can do is, if you can, Mr. Robinson, we can fully obviously finalize the Heirship, and we can move forward on the independent administration once we have the interpreter. So call Nick Zimetz here at our office, and we'll put you on a special setting, so you guys can come back as soon as you find appropriate interpreter, translator.
Okay, Your Honor, thank you.
Okay, thank you, and I'm sorry. I know they all came and were here, but
Well,
thank you, Mr. Chavez. If you could have his son interpret the issue, that there has to be a formal.
he does speak English, Your Honor. I may be able to proceed, but I don't know if the court has time for that.
If he's doing it in English, so long as I understand that he's understanding everything in English and he's answering and there's nobody translating, we can move forward, but it just seems like he's using a translator. So I don't want to move forward and him not understand it.
I understand, Your Honor.
Comfortable doing that to him. He'll answer yes, just to move along maybe, and that may not be, a true understanding of this matter.
I understand,
Like
Your
I
Honor.
said, if you could please contact Nick Zimetz, and he'll help you with, like I said, a special setting for a hearing, so you don't have to wait too long.
I will do that, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for being understanding on that matter.
You're welcome. Bye.
Thank you. You're excused. I call cause number 507435 in the state of Richard Theodore Topping on determination of heirship and independent administration. Mr. Taylor and Ms. Carpenter, are you both ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
And who are your witnesses? I'll need to swear them in. They need to be off of mute and on video.
Felicia Everett, Your Honor, and Victoria Courier. And I believe I've saw them on the screen. And then
Samsung
here.
Is Samsung one of your witnesses?
I think so, Your Honor.
Okay, she'll need to get off mute.
Okay, let me see if I can text her.
I need a Victoria Courier.
I'm
Yes.
here.
Yay.
Okay, so Candace Jewett, Victoria Courier, and Felicia Everett. If you would raise your hands, and I will swear you in. I need to be able to see your hand. I don't see a third hand. Okay, thank you. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give in this case to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you. You may proceed, Ms. Taylor.
Judge, I call applicant Candace Duet. What is your name?
Candace Stewart.
And how are
Miss-
you related to Richard Topping?
I'm his
Ms.
daughter.
Ms. Taylor, can we move forward with the heirship first?
Yeah, I thought I was, Your Honor.
Okay.
Did he die on December 23rd, 2021, at the age of 85 years?
That's correct.
And did he at the time have 3 children?
He did.
And they are Sherry Topping, who's an adult, you, Candace Topping Duet, an adult, and Tamara Allen, an adult. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Did he have any other children born or adopted to him?
Yes, he did.
No, no other children?
Deceased. She's deceased.
Okay, who died?
Rebecca.
Okay, and when did she die?
Birth.
At birth. And and that was in 1965. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Were there any other children born or adopted?
No, there was not.
Okay. And did he leave a will?
He did not.
Have you been able to locate a will anywhere?
No, we haven't.
You, in fact, had talked to his attorney and found out that he had drafted a will but had not executed the will. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And so there is no will in this estate. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And are you, do you believe that there, other than the 3 of you that we've named, there are any other children who were born or adopted to that were stand to inherit?
No, there is not.
Was he married to your mother?
He was.
Her name was Juanita Garrett. Is that correct?
That is correct.
They were married in 1965. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And they divorced in July of 81. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Did he get married to anybody else?
He did not.
Did he cohabit with anybody else that he could call his common law spouse?
He did not.
Okay, so you are confident that he had no other heirs?
That is correct.
I pass the witness.
Thank you. Just for clarification, the witness that just testified, what was her name?
Candace Duet?
Okay, and she's the applicant?
Correct, Your Honor.
Okay, so we need the 2 witnesses for the heirship at this time to be questioned to give testimony to prove up the heirship.
I thought, okay, Your Honor, I often do all 3, and I apologize to the court for wasting your time. I did not mean to do that.
No,
Judge,
you only need 2 and the heirship. So
Judge, I call Felicia Everett.
Thank you.
Miss Everett, what is your name?
Felicia Everett.
And how are you familiar with Richard Topping?
I'm one of his daughter's best friends.
Okay, and how long have you known him?
Over 30 years.
Okay, and did he die in December 23rd, 2021 in Conroe?
Yes.
And as far as you know, did he only have the 3 children that you knew about, which were Sherry, Candace, Tamara? Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you familiar that he had another child that had died at infancy?
Yes.
Okay. And as far as you know, were there any other children that you knew that were born or adopted to him?
No.
And did you know his wife who got divorced from him in 1981?
I did not know her.
Did you know of him having any other wives or any other live-in girlfriends that he could have called a common law wife?
No.
And are you familiar enough with Mr. Topping that you believe that he would have, if he would have had another child, you would have known about it?
Yes.
And are you confident that the 3 people who stand to inherit from him are Sherry, Candace, and Tamara?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you're not being compensated in any way for this testimony, is that correct?
No, ma'am.
All right, thank you. I pass the witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. May I proceed, Your Honor?
Yes, Mr. Carpenter, you may proceed.
Yes, Ms. Everett, if there was a will and that you are aware of a will, you would let the court know this morning. Is that correct?
Correct.
And based on your testimony, there were no other relationships to your personal knowledge in which there could have been any child that was either born or adopted. Is that correct?
That's right. No, none that I know.
And you are testifying this morning freely and voluntarily. In other words, nobody has offered you anything of value in exchange for your testimony this morning.
No, they are not.
And did you know of any will that was performed or that he may have had?
No, sir.
I pass the witness, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor.
Your Honor, I call Victoria Courier. Is your name Victoria Courier?
Yes, ma'am.
And how did you know Richard Topping?
Candy has been my best friend for 44 years.
And we're talking about Candace Topping, who just testified. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you've known him. Were you familiar with the family and the family history?
Absolutely.
And so you are familiar with Mr. Topping's life. And did you know that he had 4 children total?
Yes.
And that one had died in infancy?
Yes.
Did you know his wife, who he got divorced from in 1981?
Yes, I did.
And you are testifying that they did get divorced. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And did he ever get married to anybody else or live with anybody else that he could call a common law spouse?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And are you, and after listening to the testimony that's been given, are you in agreement that the only 3 people that stand to inherit are his 3 daughters, Sherry, Candace, and Tamara?
That is correct.
And you're not being compensated in any way to make this testimony. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And you're familiar enough with this family that you believe that he would not have anybody else that he took as adopted or took home to raise as his child?
That is correct.
I pass the witness.
Thank you. Mr. Carpenter?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Yes, Ms. Currier, you've known the family history for a long time. And if there were any other children that was born or adopted, you think you would probably know. Is that correct?
I would absolutely know. He was a second father to me.
Okay, and if there were, you would let the court know this morning.
Absolutely.
And you have not received anything, any money or anything of value in exchange for testifying this morning.
No, sir, I have not.
And your testimony is freely and voluntarily given in this case.
Sir. Yes, sir.
Now, I think there was some conversation about a will, but there was not any finalized will to your knowledge. Is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
I will pass the witness at this time, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Your Honor,
Regarding I'm sorry, Ms. Taylor.
I said that's all I have on the Heirship at this time, Judge.
All right. After hearing testimony, the court finds that the decedent, Richard Theodore Topping, died intestate, and the court finds by clear and convincing evidence that the decedent's heirs are Sherry Topping, Candace Topping Duet, and Tamara Allen. And I'll find that order now. And the ad litem's fees were agreed to at 700.
Yes,
Your Honor. That is correct, Your Honor. And there may be 2 applications. I didn't realize it, but I had submitted an application last year.
Oh, okay.
I submitted another one this week, but they are pretty much the same.
I believe, Judge, that we paid Mr. Topping, Mr. Carpenter, because I have it in my file that we have. So I hope that.
That is correct. That is
Okay.
correct, Your Honor. I have received the ad litem fee.
That's
and
good.
it's
Great.
full fee.
Well, so sorry for your loss, your friends, Miss Everett and Miss Courier. And thank you for your time today. Mr. Carpenter, thank you as well. And Mr. Carpenter, Miss Courier, and Miss Everett, you are excused.
Thank you, Your Honor. This
Thank
is
you.
my first time appearing before the court, and it was my pleasure to be here this morning.
Thank you. I appreciate hearing that. Thank you. All right, Miss Taylor, you may proceed on the independent administration.
Okay. I call Candace Topping Duet again. Are you Candace Duet?
I am.
And you are the applicant in this case, is that correct?
That is correct.
And we've established that your dad died in December 23rd, 2021, is that correct?
That is correct.
And he owned at the time of his death real property, is that correct?
That is correct.
And you feel that there's a need for an administration of this estate, is that correct?
That is correct.
And we have the consent of all the distribuees, your sisters are consenting to you acting as an independent executor. Is that, administrator, is that correct?
That is correct.
And you're asking the court then to grant you letters of administration so that you can administer the estate and get the estate divided between you and your sisters. Is that correct? And you've testified earlier that he did not leave a will. Is that correct? and that there is, and that you've looked high and low, and the will that you do know about never got executed.
It never got executed.
Okay, and so there is a need for an administration.
That is
And you're
correct.
asking the court to allow you to do that.
I am.
And you're not disqualified in any way from serving.
No, I am not.
All right, I pass the witness, Your Honor.
Okay, would she be serving without a bond and need for
Yes.
appraisers or waiving the
Yes,
need?
Judge, I would ask that we waive appraisers because it is a non-taxable estate, and also that I believe the distribution consent asked her to be able to serve without bond.
Thank you. Okay. The court finds that there is a necessity of administration of the estate of Richard Theodore Topping, and all distributees agree to independent administration and the appointment of Candace Toppin Duet as the independent administrator. The court grants this request for independent administration, admits the estate of Richard Theodore Topping to probate for letters of independent administration. The court appoints Candace Topping Duet as independent administrator, waiving the appointment of appraisers, serving without bond, and subject to filing her oath. And I'll sign that.
Thank you, Your Honor. We'll get the testimony in from the witnesses and the oath.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ms. Duet. And I'm so sorry for the loss of your father, but thank you for
very
coming today. And
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Judge. May we be excused?
Yes, you are excused, Ms. Taylor. Thank you.
Thank you.
I call cause number 509231 in the estate of Stephen Patrick Hurd on heirship determination and independent administration.
We are present, Your Honor.
All right, I will need the witnesses, and I
The
don't have
witnesses, they are here. I see Dr. Michael Hurd. He's showing up as Michelle iPad, I believe. Is that correct? And David Flores and Larry Bush was here. I see him. Okay, so those are our three witnesses, but we also have the distributees are here. They wanted to be present, and that would be Sue Underwood, and James N. Hurd is there with his mother, Marjorie Hurd.
Okay, what I'm gonna need is just the three witnesses that will be testifying, two for the heirship first, and then the one for the applicant for the independent administration. If all three of them will get sworn at the same time, that helps a little bit. Just raising your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give in this case to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Right.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You're welcome.
We first called David Flores. Mr. Flores, would you please state your name for the court?
David Flores.
And are you over 18 years of age and competent to give this testimony? You have personal knowledge of the facts you're going to be talking about, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And for about how many years did you know Stephen Patrick Hurd?
For probably over 50 years.
And how did you know him?
I grew up around the corner from him, and his little brother's my best friend.
Okay. So did you know him continuously until his death?
Yes.
Is it correct to say that Stephen was found deceased on May 31st, 2021, and that he was 61 years old at that time?
Yes.
And what county did he live in at the time of his death?
Harris.
Was that his permanent residence and domicile?
Yes, it was.
Was Stephen ever married?
No, not to my knowledge.
Did he ever have any children? Did he adopt any children, or did he claim any child as his own?
No, he did not.
Who were Stephen's parents?
James and Marjorie Hurd.
And did both of them survive Stephen?
Just the mother. The father deceased years ago.
Okay. Did he have any siblings? Can you identify them?
Yes, he had a sister, Teresa, a brother, Jimmy, and a younger brother, Michael.
And did all of those siblings survive Stephen?
No, the oldest sister was killed years ago.
Did she have any children? Did you know?
Yes, she had one son, Christopher Nichols.
Okay, when she passed away, was Teresa married?
No, she was already deceased.
Wait a minute. When Teresa passed away,
Oh, yeah.
was she married?
I do not think so.
Okay. And you're certain she had only one child, born to or adopted by or claimed by her?
Yes.
Your phone ringing.
Do you have any financial interest in Stephen's estate?
No, I do not.
Are you being paid for your testimony?
No, ma'am, I'm not.
Do you know if Stephen ever had a will? Or would you even have reason to know
No,
that?
not to my knowledge.
Do you think you would have known if he had one? It's okay to say no.
Yeah, his brothers would have known. I would think so.
But you would. Your Honor, we have nothing further of this witness, so we pass him. Thank
Okay,
you,
Ms.
Ms. Flores.
Ms. Kamani?
Yes, Your Honor. Joy Kamani, attorney at law and representing the interests of the unknown heirs. I do have a couple questions, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Did Stephen ever discuss estate planning with you?
You talking to me?
Yes, sir. Did Stephen,
no.
did he?
No, he did
Repeat,
not.
please. Okay. And were you paid for your testimony today?
No, it was not.
Did Stephen ever consider anyone his significant other or common law married?
Not that I know of, no.
No further questions, Your Honor. Pass the witness.
Thank you. Ms. Jeffers, your second witness?
Thank you. We call Larry Bush. I don't see him on the screen.
He's on there.
Okay. Would you please state your name for the court?
Larry Bush.
And are you over 18 years of age and competent to give this testimony? You're aware of the facts that you're going to be talking about?
Yes, ma'am.
For how many years did you know Stephen Patrick Hurd, and how did you know him?
I grew up 4 houses down from the Hurd family, so I've known the whole family for 56 years.
Thank you. And you knew him continuously until the time of his death? Is that correct to say?
Yeah, yes, ma'am. That is correct.
Was Stephen found deceased on May 31st, 2021 at the age of 61?
Yes, ma'am.
And in what county did he live at the time of his death?
Stephen lived in Harris.
Okay. And that was his permanent residence and domicile here, right?
Yes, ma'am. That is correct.
Was Stephen married at the time of his death?
No, ma'am. He was not.
Was he ever married, or did he live with someone and claim that person as his common law wife?
No, ma'am. He was not.
Did he ever have any children? Did he adopt any children or claim anybody to be his child?
No, ma'am. He did not.
To the best of your knowledge, did Stephen die without a will?
Yes, ma'am. That is correct.
Would you have known if he had a will? Would you have spoken to him about that?
I would have heard about it. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And who were Stephen's parents?
Margie and Jim Hurd.
And did both of them survive Stephen?
Mr. Hurd passed away roughly 2012.
Okay. And did Stephen have any siblings?
Mike, Jimmy, and Teresa.
And did they all survive Stephen?
Teresa did not.
Do you know about when she died?
It would have been the very early 80s.
And did she have any children?
One child, Chris Nichols.
Do you think you would have known if she'd had any other children?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and you say, is your testimony know that she did not? Is that correct?
That she did not have, yeah, that's correct. She did not have any other children.
Okay. Do you have any financial interest in Stephen's estate?
No, ma'am, I do not.
And are you being paid for your testimony?
No, ma'am, I am not.
Thank you so much. We pass the witness.
Thank you. Ms. Kamani?
Only one question for the witness, Your Honor. Did you and Stephen ever discuss how his estate would be distributed after he passed, or any estate planning?
No, ma'am, we did not.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you.
Your Honor, we have no further testimony, and we ask the court to declare the heirship of Stephen Patrick Hurd.
Thank you. After hearing the testimony, the court finds the decedent, Stephen Patrick Hurd, died intestate. And the court finds by clear and convincing evidence that the decedent's heirs are Marjorie C. Hurd, James N. Hurd II, Michael Allen Hurd, and Christopher Nichols. And are the ad litem's fees agreed to by both parties? $600?
They are, and that check will be going out tomorrow morning. It's already been picked up. Mail's been picked up today.
Thank you. Mr.
We
Flores,
appreciate
Mr.
Mr. Money.
Bush, I'm sorry for your loss of a friend. Thank you for your time here today.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You're welcome. And Ms. Kamani, you're excused, and I sign.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Jeffis, if you'd like to proceed with Mr., I believe your applicant, Mr. Hurd.
Thank you. So we now call Dr. Michael Allen Hurd. I'm sure I don't see him, but I'm assuming that he's here.
He's here.
I'm here.
Thank you. Would you please state your name for the court?
Michael Allen Hurd.
And is it correct to say that you are over 18 years of age and competent to give this testimony?
Yes.
Is it correct to say you are a surviving brother of Stephen Patrick Hurd, and you're very
Yes.
familiar with his marital and family history and the affairs of his estate?
Yes, I am.
Was Stephen found deceased on May 31st, 2021 in Houston, Harris County, Texas at the age of 61?
Yes.
Did he have a fixed place of residence here in Harris County at the time of his death?
Yes.
Have 4 years elapsed since that time?
No.
To the best of your knowledge, did Stephen die intestate, that is, without a will?
Yes.
Did you look for a will that might have been signed by your brother, I'm sorry?
I did. I looked everywhere. I looked in his house, in all of his papers. I asked my family. They knew of no existence of a will.
Thank you. Was Stephen ever married or divorced?
No.
Did he have anybody that lived with him that may have been his common law wife?
No.
Was any child or were any children ever born to, adopted by, or claimed by Stephen?
No.
Is it correct to say that Stephen owned an interest in real estate on Highland Street in Harris County? And he also owns some car, cash, insurance policies, some financial accounts and household goods?
Yes.
And it was of a non-taxable value, is that correct?
Yes.
Is there a need to administer Stephen's estate?
Yes.
Did you just hear the testimony of David Flores and Larry Bush, and was their testimony, to the best of your knowledge, correct?
Correct. Yes.
And is it correct to say that your mother, Marjorie Hurd, your brother, James N. Hurd II, Christopher Nichols, and yourself are the sole distributees of your brother, and you have all consented to an independent administration and asked this court to appoint you as independent administrator without bond and with power of sale?
Yes.
So you're asking the court to name you as the sole independent administrator to serve without bond, and is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you qualified and not disqualified from serving in that capacity?
Yes.
Your Honor, we ask that Michael Allen Hurd be appointed independent administrator of the estate of Stephen Patrick Hurd to serve without bond and with power of sale. And we ask that appraisers be waived. We note that all of the distributees have on file their agreement to this action.
Thank you. After hearing testimony, the court finds there is a necessity for the administration of this estate of the estate of Stephen Patrick Hurd, that all distributees agree to independent administration and the appointment of Dr. Michael Allen Hurd as independent administrator. The court grants the request, admits the estate of Stephen Patrick Hurd to probate for letters of independent administration, and the court appoints Dr. Michael Allen Hurd as independent administrator, waives the appointment of appraisers. He shall serve without bond, subject to the filing of his oath.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. I'll sign the document right now. Thank you, Dr. Hurd, and I'm so sorry for your loss. But
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Okay. Oh my, that's just
Nothing.
anybody.
My.
I call cause number 508-823 in the estate of Eugene Adams Crane for determination of heirship and independent administration.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Hello, Mr. McCalla and Mr. Clark, are you ready to proceed?
Yes, we are, Judge.
Okay, and your witness. I'll need Tony Patton, Nanette Crane, and Lilo Adams Crane to please raise your right hand where I can see it in the screen. Thank you. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give in this case to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, Tony, you need to unmute.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, Mr. McCullough, you may proceed.
Thank you, Judge. We would call Tony Padon, please.
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Padon, can you state your name for the record, please?
It's Anthony Joseph Payton, P-A-D-O-N. I go by Tony.
Apologies. Mr. Payton, were you personally acquainted with Eugene Adams Crane?
Yes.
And how did you know Mr. Crane?
We met after the summer after 8th grade 50 years ago.
Okay. So are you aware that he died on July 16th, 2022?
Yes.
Okay. And to your knowledge, he passed away in Harris County, Texas. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And he was approximately 68 years old at the time of his death.
Yes.
And he had a fixed place of residence in Harris County. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And to your knowledge, 4 years have not elapsed since the date of his death. Is that correct?
No.
Okay. And you indicated that you'd known him for 50 years, so you're well acquainted with his family history and marital history. Is that correct?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Okay. And to your knowledge, he did not have a will, or did he ever speak to you about having a will?
No, he really didn't. And to my knowledge, he did not have a will.
Okay. And knowing him as you did for 50 years, if he did have a will, do you feel like that was something he would communicate with you about?
Probably.
Okay. And to your knowledge, Mr. Crane was previously married, is that correct?
Correct.
And he was divorced from Nanette Crane, is that correct?
That's what I understand.
Okay. And of that marriage, he had 2 children, is that correct?
Correct.
And those children are Lilo Adams Crane and Eugene Anthony Crane, is that correct?
Yes, that's what I understand.
Okay. To your knowledge, did he ever speak about having any other children from any other relationship?
No.
To your knowledge, did he ever adopt or bring into his home any other children that he may have claimed as his own?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Okay. In your 50-year relationship, did you ever hear him make comments or have any indication that he had any other children other than Lilo Adams Crane and Eugene Anthony Crane?
No.
Okay. And the time he passed away, he was not married. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. To the best of your knowledge, his parents are deceased, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so your understanding would be the sole heirs of Eugene Adams Crane would be his sons, Lilo Adams Crane and Eugene Anthony Crane. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's how I understand it.
Okay. Judge, I pass the witness.
Thank you. Mr. Clark?
Oh, thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Payton, do you recall speaking to me on November 15th of 2022?
I'm sorry?
Do you recall speaking to me on November 15th, 2022 when I called you?
Oh, I think so. Yeah.
All right. And some of my questions are redundant, so I apologize. But you knew Mr. Crane for around 50 years, is that correct?
Yes.
And how did you guys become acquainted?
How did we
Become
Communicate?
acquainted?
I'm sorry.
Become acquainted?
Oh, we met on a bus trip to go to International Falls, Canada, that the Kincaid coaches put together. He and his brother Danny were on the bus.
All right.
And lifelong friends.
And he was married one time in his life, correct?
Yes.
And that was to Nanette Crane?
Yeah, that was to Nanette. Yeah.
Yeah. And they got divorced to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
Okay. And Mr. Crane had 2 children, correct? Lilo and Eugene Crane?
Yeah.
And if he'd had any other children, would you have probably known about them?
Yes.
Did he ever hold himself out to be the parent of any other child besides Lilo and Eugene?
No. That's Lilo, by the way.
Okay. And did any other children live with him?
No. Just his son.
And to the best of your knowledge, nobody came forward in his lifetime claiming to be a child of his, other than the 2 we've mentioned.
Correct.
And both of his children are alive?
I presume so. I don't know where little Gene is, but you know.
All right.
I'll let Adam answer that. I don't know where Gene is.
To the best of your knowledge, he didn't put any of his children up for adoption?
No.
Okay. And do you know if anybody besides Nanette Crane has came forward claiming to be a spouse of his in the past?
No.
Then, to the best of your knowledge, the only surviving heirs that he has are his son, Lilo Adams Crane and Eugene Anthony Crane?
Yeah, that'd be the way I'd understand it.
Okay. Did he ever talk to you about having a will?
Not really.
Okay.
You know,
If it had a will, do you think he may have mentioned it in the years you knew him?
probably.
Do you have
He
any?
wasn't very organized about those things, really. You know.
Do you have an interest in this estate?
No.
And have you been paid anything for your testimony today?
No.
Mr. Payton, thank you. I passed the witness.
Judge, we'd call Nanette Crane. Ms. Crane, can you state your name for the record, please?
Nanette Crane?
Okay. And you were familiar with Eugene Adams Crane, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you were in fact a wife of Mr. Crane, is that correct?
That's correct.
And what year were you all divorced in?
2002?
Okay. And since that time, you still maintain some communications with Mr. Crane, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And of that marriage, you had 2 children, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
Correct.
that's Lilo Adams Crane and Eugene Anthony Crane, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And no other children that you're aware of were ever born to Eugene Adams Crane, is that correct?
Yes, it is. Correct.
Okay. And to the best of your knowledge, he never mentioned ever having any other children by any other person, is that correct?
Correct.
And he never adopted or brought anyone into his house aside from his 2 sons and claimed them as his children, is that correct?
Yes, correct.
And to your knowledge, he passed away in July 16th, 2022 in Harris County, Texas, is that correct?
Correct.
And he lived in Harris County, Texas, is that correct?
Yes.
And his house, his residence was at 8014 Beverly Hill, Houston, Texas, 77063. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
To your knowledge, did Mr. Crane have a will?
And not to my knowledge.
Okay. Having been married to him and maintaining a relationship, if he did have a will, is that something you think you would have known about?
Not after divorcing, no.
Okay. But to your knowledge, in this particular case, that there was a search for any will, is that correct?
Again?
Were you aware that there was a search for any will in this case?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay. And are you aware that we petitioned this court to look in a safe deposit box for any will?
Correct.
Okay. And to your knowledge, no will was ever found. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. Correct.
the best of your knowledge, Lilo Adams Crane and Eugene Anthony Crane are the only heirs of the decedent. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
it's correct.
And although you were previously married to Mr. Crane, you don't receive anything from this estate. Is that correct?
Correct.
And you haven't been paid or receive anything for your testimony here today. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Judge, I pass the witness.
Ms. Crane,
Yes,
this is Tim Clark. Do you recall speaking with me back on February 2nd, 2023?
yes, I do.
And a few of my questions are redundant, so I won't go over all of them. But how many years did you know the decedent?
I met him in 81.
Okay, so you've known him quite a while. And I heard you testify that you had been married to Mr. Crane.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and y'all divorced in 2002.
Correct.
And y'all had 2 children, right?
Yes,
And that was Lilo and Eugene Crane.
correct.
If he'd had any other children, do you think you'd have known about them?
I have no idea.
But best of your knowledge, these are
The
the
best
only 2
of my
children he
knowledge,
had?
I wouldn't have had
And
it.
to best of your knowledge, he never held himself out to be the parent of any other child not born or adopted by him. All right. And so to the best of your knowledge, the only heirs are actually Lilo and Eugene Crane.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I heard you say that there was a search made for a will, and that to the best of your knowledge, they didn't find one.
That's correct.
And again, repeating it, you haven't been offered anything for your testimony, correct?
No, sir.
And you don't receive anything from this estate. You don't receive anything from this estate.
No.
God, that's something. All right. I have no further questions, Your Honor. Thank you, Ms. Crane.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
Thank you, Mrs. Crane, Ms. Crane. Mr. McCalla, do you have anything further?
Nothing on the
Heirship.
Heirship, Judge. Our
Okay.
last witness is just for the administration.
After hearing the testimony, the court finds that the decedent Eugene Adams Crane died intestate, and the court finds by clear and convincing evidence that the decedent's heirs are Lilo Adams Crane and Eugene Anthony Crane. And I'll sign this order. And the ad litem fees are agreed to by both parties.
Yes, Judge, I believe Mr. Clark has already submitted an order, and we have already sent him the funds.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Mr. Clark, you may be excused. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Clark.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. McCalla, you may proceed on the independent administration.
Thank you, Judge. May Mr. Padone be excused, Judge?
Yes, I'm so sorry. Mr. Padone, Mr. Payton, you may be excused. Thank you for your time, and I'm so sorry for the loss of your dear friend.
Thanks, Tony.
Judge, I'd call Adam Crane. Mr. Crane, can you state your name for the record, please?
Yes, it's Lilo Adams Crane.
Okay. And Mr. Crane, you are the son of Eugene Adams Crane, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And as we've learned, your father passed away on July 16th, 2022 in Harris County, Texas, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
He was 68 years old at the time of his death, correct?
Yes.
And he lived here in Houston, Harris County, Texas, is that correct?
Yes.
And his home was at 8014 Beverly Hill, Houston, Texas, 77063, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And at the time he passed away, he was not married, is that correct?
Correct.
And his only prior marriage was to your mother, Nanette Crane, is that correct?
Yes.
And he had 2 children, yourself and your brother, Eugene Crane, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And to your knowledge, he never claimed anyone else as being a child. Is that correct?
No, not to my knowledge.
Okay. And as you heard testimony, there was a search for any will that was out there. Is that correct?
Yes,
And you petitioned this court for to open the safe deposit box that he owned. Is that correct?
it is. Yeah,
Okay. And when you opened that safe deposit box, there were no will or other papers of that nature in there, correct?
correct.
And is there a necessity for this estate? Is there a need for this estate to be probated?
Yes, yes,
Your dad had a house, a home, a residence, real property. He
correct.
also had some
And-
bank accounts that you need to take care of. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay. To the best of your knowledge, your dad did not receive any Medicaid benefits. Is that correct?
I believe that's correct. Yes,
Okay. And to the best of your knowledge, citation has been served and returned in the manner and length of time required by the estate code.
yes,
And you're asking this court for an independent administration of this matter. Is that correct?
I am.
Judge, at this time, I ask the court to take judicial notice that there is a waiver of service and a consent to independent administration filed by Eugene Anthony Crane in this matter.
Thank you. Court takes judicial notice.
And to the best of your knowledge, you and your brother have agreed to yourself as being the administrator of this estate.
Yes, we have.
Okay. And you are not disqualified from being the administrator from this estate. Is that correct?
No, I'm not.
Okay. And so to the best of your knowledge, you are qualified to be the administrator of this estate. Is that correct?
I am. Yes,
Okay. And again, you're asking this court to name you the independent administrator of this court, to dispense with the filing of any appraisers, and to have you serve as the independent administrator and receive letters of administration to resolve this estate. Is that correct?
that's correct.
Judge, no further questions for Mr. Crane?
Thank you. The court finds that there is a necessity for the administration of the estate of Eugene Adams Crane, and that all distributees agree to independent administration and appointment of Lilo Adams Crane as independent administrator. The court grants such request and admits the estate of Eugene Adams Crane to probate with letters of independent administration, and the court appoints Lilo Adams Crane as independent administrator to serve without bond. The court waives the appointment of appraisers, and he shall serve subject to the filing of his oath.
Yes, Judge, and appreciate that, Judge, and we'll get the statements of facts signed and notarized and submitted, as well as the oath.
Okay, and I'll sign the document right now, the order. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. May I be excused?
Yes, sorry, Mr. Crane, for your loss, as well as Ms. Crane. Thank you for
Thank
coming
you.
in today, taking care of what needed to be taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you,
Yes.
Judge. Appreciate your
Thank
time.
you.